may all be seated. This is the second day of the conference. I decided to put on my tie because today is serious business. If we may start with a protocol, we would love to welcome, that's the representation from the Minister's Office, Minister of Finance, that's Mr. Thindi. Thank you very much for making time to be here with us. Representing the Governor's Office for this morning, we have the Special Advisor, that's Ms. Rosalia Mochikele Sibia. Good morning and welcome. In absentia, the Mayor's Office. We would also like to welcome the Chair, Sabrina Jacobs. Thank you very much for you and your team for organizing such an event. To all the speakers here today, for also the other representatives from the rest of the protocol, good morning and welcome. Is everyone feeling okay? Yes? All right, all right. I noticed that, you have a group of people that would like to sit at the same seats of the day before. I've seen that some people have changed from that side to that side, which is good. They say with the mind, with the brain, it's good to change. It's a variety. It doesn't say anything about you sitting at the same seat. My name is Ilka Platt. I will moderate the program for this morning, and we have started a bit late, so we will keep to the schedule. First and foremost, I would like to call to the front the chair of RFIN, that's Ms. Sabrina Jacobs. Please give her a big round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. The Minister of Finance, Honorable Kalesh Letfine, represented here this morning by the Minister's Special Advisor, Mr. Andreas Thindi. The Governor of the Commerce Region, Madam Laura McLeod Kachirwa, represented by the Governor's Special Advisor, Ms. Rosalia Mochikele Sibia. His Worship, the Mayor of Windhoek, Mose Karapua, in absentia. The Deputy Mayor of Hawke's Bay Municipality, Mrs. Martin Lowe. My fellow RFIN board members here present, stakeholders, panelists, sponsors, moderators, the organizing committee of the 13th Annual Conference, members of the media, Director of Ceremonies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. 2019 marks the 30th anniversary of what has now become an annual conference. This year in particular, I'm proud to state that despite the tough and challenging economic times experienced in our country, we have managed to host this event with all key role players in our industry, underscoring the value that our members continue to place on this event. Ladies and gentlemen, this conference takes place during a period of escalating risks to global growth, heightened by the intensified trade tensions between the world's two largest economies of the United States of America and China. This has significant negative implications for our global trade because without the engines of US or Chinese demand, global growth tends to slow, as we have seen in the recent past. Our industry has therefore not been immune to the contagion, and we continue to engage asset managers and consultants alike on ways of sourcing alpha in these volatile times. As a precursor to this important event, we recently hosted our media partners to the official launch where we unveiled the conference theme, Our Retirement, Our Responsibility, together with our newly launched logo, which illustrates close working hands around a firm, solid foundation, and at the same time symbolizing each one of us in the land of the brave. The logo is presented on the screens in front of you. We have also remained true to our mandate of providing financial education to our members and promoting good governance in the retirement funds industry. This year in particular, we sought to incorporate many suggestions that were brought forth after last year's conference, and we have made a deliberate effort to include relevant research papers, which we will be dissecting as part of today's program. Our deliberations will therefore aptly focus on the very relatable topics, these being the role of the new Equitable Economic Empowerment Framework, also known as NEF, in transformation and skills development in the financial service sector, the rethinking of retirement planning, the funding of real sector developments to grow the economy and to create jobs, responsible investing, and ESG considerations, the retirement funds legislative reform, the impact of the domestic asset requirements, the financial sector crisis management, innovation to develop and deepen our capital markets, and optimizing retirement fund portfolio construction. ladies and gentlemen, as industry representatives, we must demonstrate that we are ready to lead and in many ways transform our industry. Therefore, this platform is aimed at strengthening our resolve to meet our objectives, of advocating for decent retirement for all our members, and to provide for their beneficiaries where they are no longer able to do so. This is the purpose of a retirement fund. The Retirement Funds Institute of Namibia represents more than 200,000 members and their beneficiaries across 66 funds with assets in excess of 168 billion Namibian dollars, who we believe must continue to enjoy the protection of policy, and investments must be channeled in the areas that uplift the lives of our people and the country at large. Accordingly, we continue to advocate for policy certainty in our industry, as well as other sectors and developments that impact us. On this score, our regulator is in attendance to share information with us on present policy matters. Allow me to thank all our speakers, panelists and moderators for availing their skills and knowledge to enhance the discussions at this conference. We appreciate you making the time from your busy schedules to be here with us today. We would also like to thank our international guests who made an extra effort to travel to Namibia to be with us. May we all be reminded that today's deliberations will not change our industry overnight. However, with continued dialogue, such as at this platform, we edge closer to the goals we have set for ourselves. Director of Ceremonies, allow me to thank the Ministry of Finance as policy formulator, with whom together we will be faced with new methods of operations through the soon-to-be enacted film bill. The smooth transition is only made possible through the consultative frameworks established with the Line Ministry as well as other relevant stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, this year we are hosting this conference in the Great Commerce region, where we kindly graced by the presence of the Honourable Governor of the Commerce region with her representative, who will provide insights on new developments in the central region to attract your appetite for business. Thank you for making it to this event. We also thank you for making time to join us here today. It is through your leadership example that we can move to greater heights. In our deliberations with the City Fathers, we learned that the vision for the city of Windhoek is to be a smart and caring city, a city of choice. His Worship the Mayor, in absentia, will share with us the greater vision on what the city has on offer for those of you who are visiting our beautiful capital. Being a non-profit organization which relies on the support of its members and key stakeholders, RFIN would also like to highlight the ability to host this conference through the sponsors of this year's event. Without each sponsor, this event would not have been possible. Even though the economy has placed many organizations in difficult financial positions, these sponsors still saw the need to invest in our conference, for which we are grateful. And as you can see around the hall today, we are endorsed with all stakeholders from the Office of the Minister, the Governor, the Office of the Mayor, and CEOs of various service providers. This is a symbolic resolve of the will to change our economy through the different perspectives represented in the room. In conclusion, I would like to challenge each one of us to leave here today with a new hat on. To be aware of each one present and to know that the conversation does not end here today, but that it is only the beginning. Let our dialogue here not go to waste, but seek a continuous open door policy with each other and not wait for next year, this time, to simply pick up where we left off. It was the great Nigerian poet, Ben Okri, who said, "Stories can conquer fear, you know. They can make the heart bigger." My hope, therefore, is that as we share our stories here today, our resolve for a better Namibia will only increase. On behalf of the RFIN Board of Directors and the Secretariat, we welcome you to the 13th Annual Conference, and we urge you to engage, think critically, learn something new, and enjoy the discussions. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. May I please also add that the speeches will be distributed via email especially for those that are in absentia for this morning. If you have your mobiles, we are streaming for the first time live this year. So if you have family, friends, and those that couldn't attend here this morning, it's on the RFIN_NAM Facebook page as well as Poya Media. Without further ado, I would like to call to the podium, that's the Special Advisor to the Governor of the Comas Region, Ms. Rosalia Moshikele Sabia. Can you please give a big round of applause?
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. Good morning. Honorable Minister of Finance, represented by Mr. Ithindi, Special Advisor, His Worship the Mayor in his absentia, the Chairperson of the Retirement Fund Institute of Namibia, Sabrina Jacobs, Retirement Fund Institute of Namibia Board of Directors, respected stakeholders, respected sponsors, respected panelists, respected moderators, respected organizing community for 13th Annual Conference, media house present, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. My governor could not make it to this occasion as she is engaged in other equally important activities, and she sent her warm greetings to all of you. Director of Ceremonies, today we gather in a place that tells much of our effort to shape our industry. Today we come together across various business sectors, from the administration to the investments and as a trustees, to find solutions for the work we do. Today, as we reflect on our 2019 successes, we look ahead to 2020, which is around the corner, and offer a platform to build this new and enduring chapter that is the profound story of the retirement sector. Our story already reflects optimism and strength, but as respective leaders, we carry on to deliver the best that we can to our end customers. Allow me to ask you this. Did Bill Gates and Paul Allen stop after forever changing the world of personal computing? No. They kept asking, what if? And not only built on the landscape of the technological world, but divulged deep into science, medical research, and culture, and redefine what giving back means. In 2020, we are again poised to be more and to do more. Yes, we have accomplished much already, but all of it, everything we have done, brings us to a tipping point. So today offers us two choices. One, do we reflect on the successes of our current story and decided we have done enough? Or two, do we rise up to write one of the worthiest chapters of our time that tells future generations we are what we did for the country? Though we have accomplished much, we still face challenges that requires us to push further. At the top of the list is the imminent threats of climate change and declined economy. As I gave an example of Bill Gates and Paul Allen, technology has an immense effect on us directly and indirectly. You will all agree with me that the increasing usage of financial technology, hopefully during our discussion in the remaining part of the day, we can come up with a workable options solution to the problem. Director of Ceremonies, it is a fact that financial technology is moving ahead very fast. It is driving digital financial services, a major features of the digital economy. The world too is moving in that direction, and we cannot afford not to follow suit. We must therefore work even harder to address the issue of the de-risking and explore financial technology as possible solution to the problem. Finally, let me reiterate, we must find a solution to mitigate de-risking, as it is now a risk in itself, to our financial inclusion efforts. With these few words, ladies and gentlemen, once again, let me welcome you all to this conference. I hope we will have a fruitful discussion and hopefully come up with a workable option to resolve the issue of the de-risking in our region. Commerce region is the host of many information and technology systems. We all know that when Windhoek is offline, everyone does come to a standstill. This position needs to be reviewed. Also, I urge you to implore to fund other non-service activities and improve the region and the country at large. I believe that investing in good manufacturing ventures and other forms of production will boost the economy, improve our export, and contribute to the domestic revenue. As for the chair of Retirement Fund Institute of Namibia, the board and management, we would like to ensure our continuous support and appreciation for your commitment and dedication, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moshekile Sibia. I see that Mr. Matamola is really excited to speak, and to Mr. Ipumbo. However, we need to deliver the keynote address before we get into the cracks of the matter. As mentioned, representing the Minister's Office for this morning, please help me welcome the Special Advisor. That's Mr. Pinda Ithindi.
Thank you very much, Madam Director of Ceremonies. Honorable Laura McLeod Kachira, Governor of Commerce Region, here represented by Madam Rosalia Mashekele, Ma'am. His Worship, Mdek Adapa, Mayor of the City of Windhoek, in absentia. I recognize Mr. Pomboshini, Governor of the Bank, Mr. Sumata Kenneth Matomola, CEO of Namfisa, Madam Sabrina Jacobs, Chair of RFIN Board of Directors, Fund Managers and Trustees, distinguished invited guests, captains of industry, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of us. I have the distinguished honor, Madam Director of Ceremonies, ladies and gentlemen, and the pleasure to deliver the statement on behalf of Honorable Kalish Lekwang, Minister of Finance, who could not join us at this 13th annual conference of the Retirement Fund Institute of Namibia. The Minister conveys his warm regards from New York City, New York, I noticed he tweeted also last evening. And indeed, the Minister looks forward to tangible outcomes that would flow from the deliberations and the commitments of this gathering. Director of Ceremonies, this conference has said, and as you articulately stated, this conference is taking place at the time when synchronized actions at both policy and coordination levels across the public sector, the private sector, and partnerships thereof must be implemented to bring about a durable recovery of the domestic economy from the recession we are experiencing since the last quarter of 2016. The latest activity data on the state of the economy indicate that the recession is persisting this year. I think there is rich discussions that would follow to enrich the discussions of the state of the economy and what could be the possible interventions. The recession is persisting, but we also notice that the risks to recovery are still skewed to the downside and they're rotating around key elements of the final demand and key economic sectors. While some sectors of the economy, such as construction, are gradually bottoming out of the recession and the recovery of the manufacturing sector is taking hold, the prevailing drought condition in the agricultural sector has intensified, with ripple effects, of course, on dependent sectors for which agricultural output is important. And the reduced output from the primary industries, especially from the diamond subsector, are such that we have to contend with the likely contraction of the primary industries this year, which were holding firm the hopes for recovery around this year. And this is as a result mostly of the exogenous shocks in the primary industries of agriculture and mining. This is furthermore against the backdrop of low consumption demand. It is against the backdrop of declining private sector investment, which we have seen have been contracting in the order of 6-7% on average over the past 3 years. While we acknowledge that there is no silver bullet to economic recovery, it is the implementation of a package of measures, some of which are already deployed, which is necessary to spur economic activity and generate much-needed jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, sustainable development, as we know, derives from collaboration. Sustainable development derives from partnerships. But we cannot continue as business as usual to see durable, sustainable development and growth, and the quality growth for that matter. We also have to innovate and have to be competitive. We have to ensure that there is policy cohesion to ensure that these partnerships and the package of measures work synergistically. Equally, we know too well as the government, the retirement fund industry, and the entire corporate Namibia, that it is home solutions which matter. And no country can sustainably rely on other countries' resources for its own development. Notably, the retirement fund industry is home to substantial local asset base, which, excluding insurance policies, the insurance part, amounts to no less than 138 billion as at the end of 2018, or some 72% of GDP. This quantum of domestic assets, which is by and large the lifeblood of the domestic market liquidity and financial intermediation through the financial sector, is an important capital which could actually be deployed prudently to ensure that we are able to mobilize finance to finance investment opportunities in the real and services sectors of the domestic economy, and able to plug the investment savings gap in that regard, thus contributing to reigniting the engines of growth and job creation. As we are aware, 2 months ago, we held the National Economic Growth Summit under the high-level panel on the economy. And at that forum, we have deliberated or focused on the objective of how best to boost economic activity through increased private sector investment flows and the corresponding investment commitment to enhance, or corresponding commitment to enhance policy certainty across a broad range of policy objective areas. And the bid to do so is to ensure that we have a private sector-led investment drive, and we would wish to recalibrate our growth dynamics so that these are more forward by investment growth path. Concrete commitments were made from both the public sector and the private sector at that forum. And they include matters of policy clarity on certain areas, including the empowerment framework, which is on the agenda and discussion table at this forum. They included the private sector commitments in various areas. And let me commend GIPF in particular, without, of course, excluding the efforts made by other pension funds and other players in the sector, for profitable investment outlay and the commitments made in recent years, not only creating wealth from returns on local investment, but also greatly creating jobs, infrastructure, and value locally. There is therefore a proven case for the rest of the retirement fund industry and the fund managers to diversify from traditional offshore investments into other profitable opportunities in the real and services sectors of the economy. Taking cognizance of the expressed resolve, which is now a common theme, the resolve for collaboration, the resolve to enable private sector development, and look at how best we could enable private sector investment. It is important and material, Madam Director of Ceremonies, ladies and gentlemen, that at this conference we can examine pathways through which the retirement fund industry could contribute to the resurgence of green shoots on the economic landscape. And these pathways find expression in the implementation of the following intervention areas. 1, financing of growth enhancing and the key utility infrastructure in such niche areas as renewable energy, water generation, horticulture, domestic productive capacity, and agronomy. And we have seen that some of the potential projects have been brought to market in terms of commitments made at the summit and others. Secondly, supporting the implementation of the fiscal consolidation through commensurate participation in the public bond programs, thus allowing the domestic capital market development as the main source through which government achieves the reduction of the budget deficit targets over time. We have made considerable gains on this front, having more than halved the budget deficit to 4.1% this year from the high levels of 8% or so experienced 4 years ago. Third, and most important, financing SME and entrepreneurship development as a key growth point in line with the financial sector strategy and the financial sector charter commitments, and of course in line with the inclusive growth and job agenda. In this respect, joint public-private commitments are made to support financing and to support the governance of the SME financing instruments of the Credit Guarantee Scheme, of the Venture Capital Fund, and the Mentorship and Training Fund that are held at the Development Bank, and the retirement fund industry is material in catalyzing the offtake and supporting the offtake of these facilities at DBN. Fourth, the public-private partnership legal framework, but also taking note that the institutional framework are operational. This means that we can now assess the bankability of potential PPP opportunities and bring these to market. This is in regard to potential opportunities, as we have said, in the renewable energy sector, in water generation, in housing, in the provision of specialized services in the public sector. Fifth, the retirement fund industry has the financial wherewithal, for sure, the financial capacity to make a distinct difference in funding skills development in the financial sector and in the economy in general through targeted skills development programs with institutions of higher learning at home and abroad. This being one also of our commitments that we have made in the Charter in the financial sector strategy. Last but not least, local procurement spend is catalytic in creating local financial flows and productive capacity. This is one of the objective areas, again, that we have committed to, and to the extent that we can enable local procurement and SME procurement spend, to that extent that we can support domestic economic activity and create the necessary flows. It is therefore not the paucity of investment opportunities, but how best we can work together to bring potential opportunities to the market. And if specific examples come to bear, we have said in the public sector, government has decided to divest a portion of its shares in the telecommunications sector, looking at MTC, and bring such opportunities for private and public uptake through public listing, and that is coming. Last year, we have worked together with yourselves also to look how best we could encourage savings. But of course, not to create a loop through a savings investment gap. We have looked at opportunities, how best from tax policy we could encourage savings through tax deductibility as a measure to ensure that we also support a savings culture. So this spirit of working together, of collaboration, should be nurtured and should continue well in the future. Madam Director of Ceremonies, ladies and gentlemen, let me now turn to the aspect of regulatory reforms as I move to conclusion. So we would think that in the same spirit that we have cultivated and what we would wish to nurture going forward, we should embrace the regulatory reform proposed to upgrade the legislation of the non-banking financial sector towards international best practices and towards a more risk-based regulatory regime. Admittedly, some of the laws are pretty archaic that we know in the sector, and we have to upgrade such. If we have laws that are 50 years old, that are 30 years old, we need to leapfrog, but taking into consideration the practicality to be able to implement such laws without causing disruption. As we all know as well, the legislation is before Parliament, and the discussions resume today. And this is after many years of interaction as stakeholders and as partners. It is pleasing to note that RFIN has highlighted certain aspects which requires better clarity, which requires better formulation, for which the response from the Minister was provided in December last year, and we commit to cause such necessary amendments which are not inconsistent with the underlying policy. The Ministry is also aware that sufficient time is needed for consultation on the subsidiary legislation before the law takes effect. In other words, we envisage that before the law is gazetted, in terms of its implementation, that sufficient time, that a critical mass of the subsidiary legislation in terms of the regulation which the Minister issues, in terms of the standards which the authority NAMFISA would issue, that we would grant that sufficient time so that we exhaust the matters. It is not the intention of the policymaker to push through legislation haphazardly. And that is the commitment that we wish to make, and we look forward to working together in that regard. Let me therefore conclude by thanking you for the invitation and for inviting the minister, and the outcome-based discourse which will ensue. A substantial lot of proposals have been made to put forth how best we could bring about inclusive growth, how best we could create jobs, and how best we can bring about private sector participation, including how best members of the Retirement Fund Institute of Namibia could support these initiatives. Some such proposals, of course, need to be further developed and be brought to finality. But at this juncture, there is no doubt that action speaks louder than words. The retirement fund industry has a greater role to play in enabling these actions through its capacity and as a source of investable funds. I would wish to echo the sentiments which are highlighted by the previous speakers, by yourself, Madam Chair, by Madam Rosalia, that yes, we must look at those opportunities which the industry, the association, those opportunities which could support holistically these measures that we want to move forward with in terms of implementation. I look forward to the takeaways and the conclusions of this 13th annual conference. We agree that the discussions shouldn't end here. These takeaways, the ministry is available and open, that we could then coordinate further what are these takeaways and how we bring them to concrete implementation. With these remarks, ladies and gentlemen, Madam Director of Ceremonies, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Indi. We just received a notification from the Office of the Mayor, and the Mayor extends his apologies for not being able to attend due to other commitments, but they have notified that the speech will be sent with the final program and the pictures of today's event. Please, team, the conference books were given yesterday, and it took a lot of effort to actually put all the profiles and the CVs and all, the information together. As we get ready for our first presentation for this morning, may we please have a look at page 11. Kenneth S. Matamola is the Chief Executive Officer at NAMFISA. He has previously held various positions in NAMFISA, and his professional interests lie in the financial regulations and supervision and markets development. Mr. Matamola, he is the current Vice Chairman of the Committee of Insurance, Securities and Non-Banking Financial Authorities. Mr. Matamola has a lot of credentials. If you have a look at page 11, the list goes on and on and on and on with all the qualifications. Mr. Matamola, are you ready? Yes? No? You may join me to the front, please. And yeah, let's make him feel welcome.